Matthew 13, verses 1 to 17. The same day Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the lake. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, Listen, a sower went to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen. Then the disciples came and asked him, Why do you speak to them in parables? He answered, To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For to those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. The reason I speak to them in parables is that they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. With them indeed is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah that says, You will indeed listen, but never understand, and you will indeed look, but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and their ears are hard of hearing. And they have shut their eyes, so that they might not look with their eyes, and listen with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn, and I will heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. Truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. This is the word of the Lord. Amen.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Isla, for bringing us the readings. So this morning marks the first of, I think it's 3 weeks in the lectionary, focusing on Jesus' parables. Now, parables are just short stories, simple stories, using imagery taken from everyday life. Often these parables have a twist to them that comes at the end, an unexpected result, if you like. But these parables are just a teaching method, and it's a teaching method that Jesus liked to use, apparently, and it's a teaching method to convey truth for those with ears to hear it. So if you've had a chance, and you might not have had a chance, but in the reflection today, I've written my own story, and the story is about the situation we find ourselves in with coronavirus and different responses to the threat of coronavirus. My story is a fairly simple one, as is Jesus' original story that we heard of the parable of the sower. Now, it might be that lots of people heard this parable and others that Jesus told and thought, well, that's just a nice, interesting story. Maybe it's just a story about this silly farmer who goes out and scatters his seed fairly indiscriminately. Rather than trying to get it all in the good soil where it will grow well, this farmer seems to just scatter it willy-nilly so that, some falls on the path and some among the thorns. And, he's a bit of a silly farmer, really. But the twist in the story is that the seed that falls on the good soil actually produces an amazingly abundant harvest. produces 100-fold, 60-fold, 30-fold, which would have been unheard of with the grains they were growing at that time. So the surprise in the story is perhaps the farmer being extravagant, liberal with the sowing of his seed, but also the fact that the harvest was unexpectedly large. So perhaps that's all there is. Perhaps that's what the story is meant to convey. Yet again, perhaps the story is meant to show the disciples why some people are responding to Jesus' message and some are not. Because as we read further down in this chapter, we didn't read it this morning, but further down we get an explanation from Jesus that what these different soil types represent is different people's hearts and how they are responding to the message of Jesus. And likewise in my little story about coronavirus, it's an attempt to explain why not everybody perhaps is following the lockdown measures. Not everybody is following all the guidelines, and there are reasons for that. So I wondered what this parable of the sower, might say to us in our context in Melbourne, a city under lockdown because of coronavirus in 2020. Perhaps the starting point is to recognise that all of us, to some extent, are feeling a little anxious and perhaps a little fearful this week, wondering what exactly is going to happen in the weeks and the months ahead. And I think that would be a fairly normal response, a fairly normal emotion to be feeling, as we've seen those numbers rise and rise and rise. But among us, some people are ignorant of the seriousness of the situation. They don't realise how quickly this can all get away from us, such that the hospitals could get overwhelmed with cases of people contracting this nasty virus. But there are also a lot of people who have few choices. The guidelines might say to us that, yes, you must stay in your home for the next 6 weeks, and there are only these very small number of reasons why you would leave your home. And that's all fine for us who have comfortable incomes to live on, have comfortable homes to draw back to. But that doesn't apply to everybody. There are still large cohorts of people in our community at the moment who have no government support, who are really struggling to find food to put on the table, who have no jobs. And desperate people do desperate things. And perhaps that is the reason why some people perhaps have been going out and attending jobs even though they may have some symptoms, whatever, I don't know. And it's also true that among us, in our wider community, there are some who are selfish, basically, who think that these restrictions shouldn't apply to them. It's sort of government overreach, and I'll live my life the way I want to live it, thank you very much. And so there's competing interests going on, which in the story of the sower would be the seed that fell among the thorns. But all of us have choices in how we respond. So we can choose to, in these days, to sow love and kindness and hope and a sense of community and a sense that we are actually all in this together. And our response, therefore, whether to get angry with some people, disappointed, or to be patient and respond with love and kindness. We can choose to be people who spread God's message of love and grace and acceptance, even during these very difficult days that we're going to face over the next several weeks and possibly months. So as I conclude my story, may God grant to us ears to hear and wisdom to learn what the Spirit is saying to us this day. Amen.